Good morning to our respected lecturers, Professor Dr. Awing Anak Lalaki Erak and Dr. Nur Shazwani binti Shukri, as well as to all our classmates. My name is Randy Jejoswi and I am honored to open our group presentation focus EKT 12602, Introduction to Environmental Laws, Policy and Ethics. Before we dive into our research, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce my team member who worked incredibly hard on this project. Beside me, we have Muhammad Aidil Hakim bin Muhammad Rosmani, Muhammad Adib Azman bin Nur Halimi Azman, Ahmad Afifuddin bin Abdul Malik, and Muhammad Denish Iqbal bin Mazlan. Together, our study focuses on a critical issue affecting our nation's environmental sustainability, the effectiveness of each relevant law in addressing problem of water pollution in Malaysia. To begin, let us look into our background of our study. In Malaysia, um, in Malaysia, our extensive river system are foundational to everyday survival and economic progress. They provide the vast majority of our drinking water, support our massive agricultural frameworks, fuel local fisheries, facilitate navigation, and offer crucial spaces for recreational activities. However, despite their immense value, water pollution has rapidly escalated into one of our most severe environmental crises as our country undergoes rapid industrial growth, expensive agricultural activities, and exponential population growth. The volume of toxic pollution discharged into our waters has reached an alarming rate. We have all witnessed the real world impact of this. Severe recurring severe recurring pollution incident in industrialized states like Selangor and Johor have repeatedly paralyzed local water supply system, completely disrupting daily life and cutting off clean water for millions of citizens at a time. To break down why our current laws face a continuous struggle against this crisis, I will now hand the presentation over to our second speaker.
Thank,
Second speaker, the floor is yours.
okay. Thank you, Randy. I will guide us through section 1.2, our problem statement, as well as our primary federal law. The paradox Malaysia faces today is deeply troubling. Despite having an array of environmental laws, water pollution continues steadily rise. Many industry and individual citizens continue to discharge toxic waste into our river basins, either entirely illegally or by severely exceeding permitted discard standards. Through our group research, we have identified four major structural issues underlying this failure: weak enforcement of environmental law, insufficient monitoring system, a critical lack of public awareness, and poor compliance among major commercial polluters. This collective failure drives devastating impact, including the spread of waterborne disease, unbearable odor, and destruction of aquatic ecosystem, and catastrophic water supply destruction. When pollution forced water treatment plants to temporarily shut down, daily domestic activities grind to a halt, inflicting massive economic losses. Thus, a critical evaluation of our legal approach is absolutely necessary. To combat this, Malaysia relies on two main federal acts. First is the Environmental Quality Act 1974, strictly enforced by the Department of Environment or DOE. Under Section 25, discharging water into inland water is strictly prohibited. To create a true deterrent, a massive 2024 amendment was passed, raising penalties to staggering fines of up to RM 10 million. and mandatory imprisonment of up to 5 years, focusing, focusing, focusing entirely on preventing pollution at its source. The second major pillar is the Water Service Industry Act 2006, which is managed by SPAN. While the EQA protect the natural environment, the WSIA focus squarely on protecting our engineered public water supply system and infrastructure. It prohibits the discharge of hazardous substances into water sources to guarantee a safe drinking water supply for the public. I will now pass the floor to our third speaker, which is Fudain, to cover our subsidiary and state level law.
Okay, thank you, Adit. Moving beyond the broad federal acts, our legal framework utilize Section 2.2 sector-specific subsidiary regulation to target exact industries under the Industrial and Sewage Regulation. We have the Industrial Effluent Regulation 2009, which established rigid statutory limits on heavy metals and chemical discharge. Crucially, it divides regulation geographically. Standards A applies strictly to upstream zone near water intake, while Standard B regulates a downstream area. Running parallel to this is the Sewage Regulation 2009, which control domestic waste parameter like BOD, COD, and TSS, mandating that all wastewater must be truly treated before it's enter our river. Furthermore, the palm oil mill effluent or POME regulation and rubber industries control manage the massive organics and acidic waste generated by our largest agriculture drivers. We also rely on the Scheduled Waste Regulation 2005 to control the generation, storage, and transportation of toxic chemical waste to prevent illegal chemical dumping. On a complementary level, the Local Government Act 1976 empowers municipal council to control local pollution, working hand in hand with the Street Drainage and Building Act 1974, which regulate local infrastructure and drainage system. However, because land and water fall heavily under state jurisdiction in Malaysia, state level enactment are vital. A prime example is Selangor. Luas enactment 1999, which manage entire river basins and regulates water abstraction to prevent over extraction. Similarly, to Sabah and Sarawak operate under their own separate state water law, giving them a full localized autonomy to control their unique water resources and respond rapidly to pollution incident. I will now hand the presentation over to our first speaker, Danish Iqbal, to discuss the cause and impact of this pollution.
Okay, thank you, Afifuddin. Okay, now I will continue a topic, cost impact and enforcement agency time allocation. Okay, let us look into section 4.0, focusing on specific type, root cause, and impact of water pollution across Malaysia. Through our research, we categorize pollution into four main types. Industrial pollution consists on factory releasing heavy metal, oil, and untreated chemical waste. Domestic sewage pollution occurs when untreated household wastewater enter river due to poor sewage system. Agriculture pollution involves fertilizer and pesticide washing into river, causing toxic nutrient pollution and algal bloom. Lastly, oil pollution from ship and heavy land industry severely harm marine ecosystem and local fishery. The macro driver, the macro driver behind this are rapid industry, intensive urbanization, criminal illegal dumping, and weak environmental management. The direct effects are devastating river contamination, chronic water supply disrupt, destroy aquatic ecosystem, and serious public health problem. To fight back, Malaysian coordinate 4K enforcement agency. First, the Department of Environment DOE is the upper agency enforcing the EQA 1974 through rigorous site inspection and criminal prosecution. The National Water Service Commission or SPAN regulate public water infrastructure to ensure consumer safely. Local authorities work on the ground to monitor municipal waste disposal and public drainage system. Finally, state water authorities like LUAS manage anti-river basin and safeguard raw water resource. When evaluation the overall effective of this law, we see the provide a powerful framework. The EQA and its effluent regulation such as full force compliant factory to treat wastewater. While the sewage regulation and WSIA 2006 protect public health and water system. However, gap remain with bring us to our comparative analysis. Okay, now I will pass the floor to our five speaker, Muhammad Aidil Hakim.
Thank you, Danish Iqbal. To conclude our results and discussion, let us evaluate section 4.5, where our group compare the legal approach against the education and awareness approach. When looking at the primary mechanism, the legal approach relies on top-down state enforcement, statutory limits, and severe criminal penalties, such as the RM 10 million fines under the recent EQA amendments. Uh, conversely, conversely, the education approach operates through grassroots behavioral change, community programs, campaign, and institutional learning. In terms of reaction times, the legal approach is immediate. The second law enforcement execute a rate illegal activities are stopped, uh, creating a powerful legal deterrent against chronic corporate polluters. Uh, on the other hand, the education approach has a long-term reaction time, requiring years or generations to shift deep-seated cultural mindsets and waste disposal habits. However, is strange is that it is highly cost effective over time and address the absolute root cause of pollution by building an intrinsic sense of public responsibility. Looking at key limitations, uh, the legal approach suffer from incredibly high enforcement costs, limit 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 physical manpower for monitoring, and heavy reliance on overwork regulatory agencies. Meanwhile, compliance with the education approach is entirely voluntary, making it completely ineffective against stubborn, profit-driven corporate polluters who prioritize financial gain over the environment. Finally, the target audience differ. The law primarily targets heavy industries and organized illegal dumpers, while education targets the general public, local communities, households, and school students.
Thank you, Aidil. This brings us to the final conclusion of our group project. Our research has made it abundantly clear that solving water pollution in Malaysia requires a two-pronged attack. robust legal enforcement seamlessly paired with widespread public awareness. We know that main causes of our river degradation, ranging from industrial activities and domestic waste to agricultural runoff. We also know that we have comprehensive, highly powerful laws on the book, such as the EQA 1974 and the WSIA 2006, to control this pollution. However, the most critical takeaway from our study is that enforcement alone is simply not enough to solve the problem. A purely punitive system result in an endless game of cat and mouse. Therefore, our group conclude that the absolute best, most sustainable solution for Malaysia is combining strict law enforcement with proactive education. By doing this, we can punish those who destroy our environment for profit, while simu- simultaneously building our future generation of Malaysians who inherently respect and protected our water resources. With that, we conclude our group presentation. Thank you so much to our professor and peers for your valuable time and attention.